Two twin sisters secretly call their millionaire father Dad. Mom said to clean everything. On the other end of the line, he hears the tremor in their voices, but believes it's just childish exaggeration. Hours later, he decides to return home and finds his daughters kneeling in the yard. What he discovers about his wife is shocking. Richard Blackwood stood at the panoramic window of his Manhattan penthouse, silhouetted against the New York skyline. The financial district sprawled beneath him like a kingdom, stock tickers and profit margins dancing in his mind. At 42, he had everything money could buy except time. And time was what his 7-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Lily, needed most. 3 years had passed since cancer had taken his wife, Catherine. Since then, Richard had immersed himself in work, believing financial security was the greatest gift he could offer his daughters. His calendar was packed with investor meetings and international calls, while the twins were raised by a rotation of nannies and their devoted housekeeper Martha, who had been with the family since before the girls were born. "Mr. Blackwood," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your 2 o'clock is here." Richard straightened his custom Italian tie. "Send her in." Victoria Winters glided into his office with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. Elegant, poised, with sharp features and calculating eyes, she had entered Richard's life 6 months ago as his corporate events coordinator. Now she was about to become his wife. "The girls' rooms have been redecorated," Victoria announced, placing a portfolio of photos on his desk. "I've replaced those childish pink walls with something more educational." Richard flipped through images of austere cream-colored bedrooms with matching desks and motivational quotes framed on the walls. "Don't you think they're a bit young for—" "Richard," Victoria interrupted, placing her manicured hand over his. "Children need structure, direction, especially girls without a mother." He nodded, discomfort mingling with gratitude. Victoria was right. The twins needed a mother figure, and he needed order restored to his chaotic household. Across town, in the spacious Blackwood family apartment, Emma and Lily sat cross-legged on Martha's bed as the older woman braided their identical blonde hair. "Miss Victoria says we can't wear matching clothes anymore," Emma whispered, her voice small. "She says it's infantile," Lily added, practicing the new word carefully. Martha's hands paused mid-braid. "Did she now?" "She's making us eat dinner separately," Emma continued. "Says we need to develop independent personalities." Martha's weathered face creased with concern. "Your daddy knows about this." The twins exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "Daddy's busy." "Well," Martha said, finishing the braids with bright ribbons, "I'll have a word with him when—" "Martha," Victoria's crisp voice interrupted from the doorway, "I need to speak with you." The twins scampered off the bed, instinctively standing straight with hands clasped before them. Victoria barely acknowledged their presence, her attention fixed on Martha. "I'll be implementing some changes to the household routine," Victoria stated, starting with proper boundaries between staff and family. Martha had been more than staff for 15 years. She'd been there when Catherine went into labor, had helped raise the twins from infancy, had held Richard's hand at the funeral. "The girls need consistency," Martha began. "Mrs. Catherine always—" "Mrs. Catherine is gone," Victoria cut in, her voice like ice. "And I'll be Mrs. Blackwood soon. The girls will be taught independence, not coddled into weakness." That evening, as Richard returned home, the apartment felt different. The familiar scent of Martha's cooking was replaced by catered dishes. The twins' laughter, which usually echoed through the halls, was conspicuously absent. "They're completing worksheets in their separate study areas," Victoria explained, guiding him to the dining room where crystal glasses sparkled under recessed lighting. Richard frowned. "They usually greet me when I come home." "I've implemented a more structured routine," Victoria replied smoothly. "Children thrive on predictability. Besides, they need to learn that adults have important conversations that don't require their input." As Richard sipped his wine, a strange unease settled over him. The apartment was immaculate, orderly, quiet, exactly what he thought he wanted, yet something felt wrong in the silence. After dinner, he slipped into each girl's bedroom to kiss them goodnight. Both were already in bed, though it was earlier than their usual bedtime. "Everything okay, Princess?" he asked Lily, noticing her red-rimmed eyes. "Yes, Daddy." Her voice was barely audible. "Miss Victoria says we need to speak more clearly, but not unless spoken to." In Emma's room, he found her meticulously arranging pencils by size. "Miss Victoria says my desk needs to be perfect," she explained when he asked. "Or I get demerit points." Richard sat on the edge of her bed. "Demerit points?" Emma wouldn't meet his eyes. "If we get too many, we can't have dinner." Richard felt a flicker of concern, but Victoria appeared in the doorway before he could pursue it. "Bedtime is strict, Richard," she reminded him. "They have a full schedule tomorrow." As he closed Emma's door, he glanced back to see her reach under her pillow, clutching something hidden there. Their eyes met briefly, and Richard saw something he didn't understand: fear. The spring wedding was a calculated affair. No children as flower girls, despite Richard's gentle suggestion that the twins participate. Victoria had insisted on an adults-only ceremony at the plaza, with a guest list dominated by business contacts and potential investors. The twins watched from the periphery, wearing identical navy dresses that Victoria deemed appropriately somber. By summer, Martha was gone. Victoria had discovered a minor discrepancy in the household accounts and used it as justification for immediate termination. Richard, buried in a corporate merger, hardly registered the housekeeper's absence until weeks later, when he realized the twins no longer ran to greet him at the door. "They're learning self-sufficiency," Victoria explained when he mentioned it. "I've been implementing what child development experts call structured independence training." Richard nodded, appeased by the professional-sounding terminology. Victoria had an answer for everything, and her organizational skills had already streamlined his household just as efficiently as she'd streamlined his corporate events. But signs of trouble accumulated like storm clouds on the horizon. Email notifications from Greenwich Academy appeared in his inbox, concerns about the twins' declining participation in class, their separation during lunch, their whispered conversations. Richard forwarded them to Victoria, who dismissed them as transitional adjustment. "The school is too soft," she told him over dinner. "Children need to face challenges to develop resilience." Richard agreed abstractedly, his attention already returning to quarterly reports. He trusted Victoria to handle domestic matters while he focused on business. It was a perfect arrangement, or so he thought. One evening in September, Richard arrived home early, having cancelled his final meeting of the day. The penthouse was silent, but he heard the faint sound of scrubbing from the hallway. Turning the corner, he froze. Emma and Lily knelt on the marble floor, tiny hands red and raw as they scrubbed the baseboards with toothbrushes. Victoria stood nearby, scrolling through her phone. "What's going on?" Richard asked, setting down his briefcase. Victoria looked up, unfazed. "Humility training. Essential for privileged children." "They're 7, Richard protested. "Exactly the right age to learn consequences," Victoria replied smoothly. "Emma spilled juice this morning." Lily tried to clean it up without permission. "Both actions require correction." Richard looked at his daughters, noticing for the first time how thin they'd become, how their eyes remained downcast. Something twisted in his chest, but Victoria was already steering him toward his study, discussing dinner plans with investors. Later that night, Richard found himself unable to sleep. Padding down the hallway, he paused outside Emma's room, hearing muffled sounds. Opening the door slightly, he saw Emma's empty bed. Following the sounds to Lily's room, he discovered both girls huddled under a blanket, whispering by flashlight. "Girls?" he whispered. They startled violently, terror flashing across their identical faces. "Daddy, please don't tell," Lily pleaded, clutching a small notebook. "We'll go back to our separate rooms." "What are you doing?" Richard asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. The twins exchanged glances before Emma pulled out a worn teddy bear, Catherine's last gift to them before her illness worsened. "Victoria put our toys in storage," Emma explained. "She says attachments make us weak." "But we take turns hiding Beery," Lily added, "and we write notes to each other." Richard picked up the notebook, flipping through pages of childish handwriting. "Miss you. Are you hungry too? Did she make you stand in the corner today? I'm sorry I couldn't finish your chores." Something cold settled in Richard's stomach. "Why are you doing each other's chores?" "Lily gets tired faster," Emma explained with the matter-of-factness of a child. If one of us doesn't finish, we both get consequences. What consequences? Another exchanged glance. No dinner, Emma whispered. Or sometimes we have to sleep with the lights off, even though what? Even though Victoria knows we're afraid of the dark, Lily finished. She says fear is a choice. Richard felt sick. Has Victoria hurt you? The twins didn't answer immediately. Finally, Emma rolled up her sleeve, revealing fading bruises on her thin arm. She squeezes when we make mistakes, Emma said quietly. But we're not supposed to cry. Richard gathered both girls into his arms, feeling their small bodies trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Victoria said you were too busy for crying, Lily murmured into his shoulder, and that you wanted us to be perfect so you wouldn't leave too. The realization hit Richard like a physical blow. He'd been so concerned with providing financial security that he'd outsourced the emotional well-being of his daughters to a woman who saw them as projects to be optimized rather than children to be loved. Listen to me, Richard said firmly, holding them at arm's length. I'm never too busy for you, never, and I'm not going anywhere. The twins stared back skeptically, too conditioned by months of emotional manipulation to believe him immediately. But Victoria says, Lily began. Victoria is wrong, Richard interrupted, a fierce protectiveness rising within him. Tomorrow we're going to have a family meeting. Just the three of us. As he tucked them back into Lily's bed, together defying Victoria's separation rule, Richard noticed a folded paper slipped under the door. Retrieving it, he found a crude drawing of two small figures holding hands, with a larger figure standing protectively behind them. In a child's handwriting, remember when Daddy used to read to us? Richard cancelled all his meetings the next day, something he hadn't done since Catherine's final week. Victoria was furious. The Palmer acquisition doesn't wait for family drama, she hissed, immaculately dressed despite the early hour. This is precisely why children need discipline. They've manipulated you with tears. Richard stood in the kitchen making pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, something Catherine used to do. His hands were clumsy, the pancakes misshapen, but for the first time in months he heard his daughters giggling from the dining table. They're 7 years old, Victoria, Richard said quietly. They're not manipulating anyone. Victoria's eyes narrowed. I've worked too hard establishing order in this household to have it undone by sentimentality. Those girls need structure, not coddling. We need to talk about their schedule, Richard continued, flipping a pancake. And these consequences Your conference call with Tokyo is in 20 minutes, Victoria interrupted, checking her watch. I'll handle the girls. Richard set down the spatula. No, I'm staying home today. With my daughters. Something dangerous flashed across Victoria's face. Richard, need I remind you that I left my career to manage this household? To raise these children because you were too busy. Their discipline is my responsibility. Their well-being is my responsibility, Richard corrected. And I'm concerned. Victoria's demeanor shifted instantly, tears welling in her eyes. I see. After everything I've sacrificed, I'm being accused of… What, exactly? I love those girls as my own. If they've said otherwise, it's because they resent having rules after running wild for so long. Richard hesitated, Victoria's tears creating doubt where his conviction had been. She was right. He had dumped the parental responsibilities on her while he focused on work. Was he being unfair? Daddy, can we eat now? Emma called from the dining room. Just a minute, sweetheart, Richard replied, turning back to the stove. Victoria wiped her tears. Composure regained. I'm taking the girls to their piano lessons. We'll discuss this later when you're thinking clearly. Before Richard could object, she swept out of the kitchen. He heard her instructing the twins to get their coats, her voice sugary sweet in a way he'd never noticed before. That afternoon, Richard did something unprecedented. He left work early without explanation and went to Greenwich Academy. The school counselor, Miss Jennings, had been sending increasingly concerned emails. Mr. Blackwood, she greeted him, surprise evident. I'm glad you could come in. I should have come sooner, Richard admitted, taking a seat in her colourful office. Please tell me what's been happening with the twins. Miss Jennings pulled out a thick folder. Emma and Lily have always been exceptionally close, even for twins. Until recently, they were social, engaged students. But over the past 6 months, we've observed significant changes. She laid out a timeline, declining participation in class, Separation during group activities. Weight loss noticed by the school nurse. Whispered conversations that stopped when adults approached. And most concerning, Emma taking blame for Lily's mistakes. Yesterday, Lily spilled paint in art class. Before the teacher could even react, Emma announced it was her fault and accepted punishment, staying inside during recess to clean the art room. Ms. Jennings leaned forward. When I asked Emma privately why she'd taken the blame, she said, "Lily already had 2 marks this week. 1 more and she can't have dinner." Richard felt the blood drain from his face. Mr. Blackwood, is someone at home withholding food as punishment? The question hung in the air. Richard wanted to deny it, but the evidence was mounting. The twins' thinning faces, their fear, their desperate note-passing system. I need to see my daughters," he managed. "They're in music class now. I'll take you." Richard followed Ms. Jennings down colorful hallways adorned with student artwork. Outside the music room, she pointed through the window. The twins sat apart as if assigned to separate corners. While other children played instruments enthusiastically, Emma and Lily followed along mechanically, their movements precise but joyless. Richard's phone vibrated. A text from Victoria, girls' pediatrician, called. "I've scheduled appointments to discuss their concerning weight loss. These doctors are so dramatic." Another text followed. "Reminder, dinner with the Baxters tonight. Wear your navy suit. I've arranged a sitter for the girls." Richard stared at his phone, ice forming in his veins. Victoria had never mentioned concerns from the pediatrician. "Mr. Blackwood," Ms. Jennings said gently, "would you like me to bring the girls out?" Richard nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. When Emma and Lily emerged, they didn't run to him as they once would have. Instead, they approached cautiously, hands clasped behind their backs, eyes wary. "Hi, Daddy," they said in unison, their voices small. Richard knelt to their level. "Would you like to go for ice cream?" The twins glanced at each other, a silent communication passing between them. "Victoria says sugar compromises cognitive function," Lily recited. "And we have vocabulary drills at 4:30, Emma added. Richard reached out slowly, taking their small hands in his. "Not today. Today we're playing hooky." At the ice cream parlor, the twins selected identical strawberry cones, their eyes widening as if they'd forgotten such treats existed. Richard watched them eat, noticing how they took turns keeping watch at the door. "Girls," he said carefully, "I need to ask you something important. Are you happy at home? With Victoria?" Their immediate tension told him everything. "She makes the rules," Emma finally whispered. "And we try to follow them," Lily added. "But sometimes we can't," Emma continued. "And then she gets really quiet, which is worse than yelling." Richard leaned closer. "Worse how?" Emma looked down at her ice cream, now melting unnoticed. "She says if we tell you how bad we are, you'll send us away to boarding school. Because you work so hard and don't need more problems. She says we're lucky she's patient with us," Lily whispered, "because nobody else would want such difficult children." In that moment, sitting across from his terrified daughters, Richard Blackwood, who had built a financial empire through strategic decisions, made the most important choice of his life. "I need you both to listen very carefully," he said, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "You are not difficult. You are perfect exactly as you are. And I am taking you home right now, our real home." "But Victoria," Emma began. "Victoria," Richard said firmly, "will not be making the rules anymore." Richard drove north along the Hudson River, the Manhattan skyline receding in his rearview mirror. The twins dozed in the back seat, emotionally exhausted after their ice cream confession. He had packed only what they could carry: a few clothes, their hidden teddy bear, and the notebook of secret messages. They arrived at dusk at a modest lakeside cabin in the Catskills, a property Catherine had insisted they keep, despite its minimal investment value. "Some things," she told him, "are worth more than their market price." The cabin sat untouched since their last family vacation 3 years ago. Dust covered the furniture, but the essentials remained. 3 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and wide windows overlooking Lake Minnewaska's serene waters. "Is this a hotel?" Lily asked sleepily as Richard carried her inside. "No, sweetheart. This is our house, our other house." "Does Victoria know about it?" Emma whispered, clutching her sister's hand. "No," Richard assured her, setting Lily down on the worn couch. This place was special to your mother. It belongs just to us." While the girls explored cautiously, Richard's phone exploded with notifications. Victoria had discovered their absence and was alternating between frantic concern and cold fury. "Your behavior is completely unprofessional," her final message read. "The Baxters are waiting. Whatever emotional crisis you're having, handle it after dinner." Richard turned off his phone. That night he made simple sandwiches, which the twins devoured as if they hadn't eaten properly in months. Perhaps they hadn't. He watched them eat, counting the visible ribs beneath their thin pajama tops, noting the dark circles under their eyes. "Can we," Emma began hesitantly, "can we sleep in the same room tonight?" "Of course," Richard said. "You can share the big bed if you want." The twins exchanged glances as if waiting for a trap. "Really?" Lily asked. "Really?" Richard gathered them close. "From now on, new rule. You tell me what makes you feel safe, and we'll do that." Later, after tucking them into the master bedroom with nightlights glowing, Richard sat on the porch, watching moonlight dance across the lake. He pulled out his laptop and did what he should have done months ago. He accessed the security system in his Manhattan apartment. The footage told the story Victoria had carefully hidden. The twins scrubbing floors on their knees, standing in corners for hours, being sent to bed without meals. Victoria's precise surgical method of control, never leaving visible marks, always maintaining plausible deniability, expertly isolating the girls from their father and from each other. Richard watched, sick with guilt, as months of abuse unfolded before him. How had he not seen it? How had he been so blinded by his own convenience, by having someone else handle the messy emotional aspects of parenting, while he focused on the measurable metrics of success? The next morning he called his lawyer and sent the security footage. By afternoon, preliminary divorce papers were being drawn up, along with a restraining order. "Daddy?" Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching a worn notebook. "Can we put this on the table?" Richard recognized the notebook of secret messages. "Of course, but you don't need to hide your thoughts anymore." Emma shook her head. "It's not for hiding. It's for if we're scared to say something out loud." Richard knelt before her. "You can always tell me anything." "But yes, the notebook stays." And Emma hesitated. "Can we call Martha?" Martha." The housekeeper Victoria had dismissed. "Yes, we'll call her today." Over the next week, a new routine emerged. Mornings began with pancake attempts, increasingly less disastrous as Richard improved. They explored the lakeside, collected rocks, built a simple fort from fallen branches. Richard worked remotely, setting strict boundaries around his availability. Each night the twins left notes in the communication notebook. "Can we have the lights on? I had a bad dream about her. Are we in trouble for telling?" And each morning Richard responded, "Yes to lights. Dreams can't hurt you. I'm here. Never in trouble for telling the truth." The first major test came when Victoria's lawyer contacted them. She was claiming abandonment, threatening to go public with accusations that Richard had become unstable following a mental breakdown. Richard gathered the twins on the porch swing, explaining in age-appropriate terms what was happening. "Victoria says we have to come back," he said carefully. "But I've shown people the videos of how she treated you, and they agree you're safer here with me." "Will we have to see her?" Lily asked, eyes wide with fear. "No," Richard said firmly. "Not ever again if you don't want to." "What about school?" Emma wondered. "I've enrolled you in the local school. It's smaller than Greenwich Academy, but the teacher seems nice. Would you like to meet her tomorrow?" The twins nodded, cautious optimism replacing their perpetual wariness. That afternoon, Richard received a call from Samantha Taylor, a child psychologist recommended by Ms. Jennings from Greenwich Academy. "The girls need specialized support," Ms. Jennings had insisted. "Someone who understands sibling trauma." Samantha arrived the next day, a warm, steady woman with laugh lines around her eyes and a gentle voice that somehow commanded attention without demanding it. "I'm not here to make you talk about anything you don't want to," she told the twins as they sat cross-legged on the living room floor. "Today we're just going to draw." Richard watched from the kitchen as Samantha spread art supplies across the coffee table. The twins approached cautiously, selecting crayons with careful deliberation. "Draw whatever you want," Samantha encouraged. "There's no right or wrong." Emma drew a dark bedroom with two tiny figures huddled together. Lily drew 3 people holding hands by a lake. Richard recognized himself and the twins. "These are powerful," Samantha said, studying their artwork. "Would it be okay if I came back tomorrow?" The twins looked to Richard, who nodded encouragingly. "Can we draw again?" Lily asked. "Absolutely," Samantha smiled. "Art helps us say things when words are too hard." After Samantha left, Richard found a new note in the communication notebook. "She doesn't make us feel stupid for being scared." Richard wrote back, "Being scared is never stupid. I get scared too." That evening, as the twins built a blanket fort in the living room, something Victoria would have forbidden as disorderly, Richard made a decision. He called his corporate board and requested a 6-month sabbatical. "Family emergency," he explained simply. "My daughters need me." For the first time in his career, Richard Blackwood prioritized something that couldn't be quantified on a spreadsheet. The healing of his daughters' hearts would not show up in quarterly reports, but it was suddenly the only metric that mattered. Autumn painted the Catskills in fiery colors as weeks turned into months. The lakeside cabin transformed from a temporary refuge into a true home. Richard converted the small office into a homework space with 2 desks positioned side by side, never separate. Victoria's legal threats eventually dissolved when faced with the security footage evidence. She agreed to a quiet divorce, leaving New York altogether for a corporate position in London. The scandal she had threatened never materialized. Richard's priority was protecting the twins, not public vindication. Healing came in small moments. The first time the twins laughed without covering their mouths. The morning Lily spilled orange juice and didn't freeze in terror. The afternoon Emma disagreed with Richard about which movie to watch, a minor act of independence that brought tears to his eyes. Samantha Taylor became a constant presence, visiting 3 times weekly for therapy sessions that gradually evolved from drawing to talking to carefully guided emotional processing. Recovery isn't linear, she explained to Richard during their parent counseling sessions. There will be setbacks, nightmares, regression. Your job is simply to remain steady. Richard attended a support group for parents of traumatized children held in the community center near Lake Minnewaska. There he met other adults learning to put their children's emotional needs first. Single parents, step-parents, grandparents raising grandchildren, all united by their commitment to breaking cycles of harm. "I calculated everything, except my daughter's silence," Richard admitted during one session. "I tracked stock prices but missed their suffering." Martha returned to their lives not as household staff, but as family friend. She rented a cottage nearby and visited often, bringing her famous oatmeal cookies and the unconditional love the twins associated with safer times. As winter settled over the lake, Richard established new traditions. Sunday pancake competitions, judged on creativity rather than perfection. Bedtime stories where the twins took turns adding plot twists, movie nights with blankets and popcorn, and permission to fall asleep on the couch. The communication notebook remained on the kitchen table, though its entries evolved. "Can we get a puppy? I want to try soccer. Is it okay if I don't like math?" His responses were equally straightforward. "Let's research breeds together. Soccer sign-ups are next month. It's okay to find subjects challenging." One snowy evening, as they gathered around the fireplace, Emma asked the question Richard had been dreading. "Daddy, why did you marry Victoria?" Richard considered deflecting, but remembered his promise of honesty. "I thought she would make our lives more organized. I was wrong about what was important." "She said you were too busy for us," Lily whispered. "I made myself too busy," Richard admitted. "I thought giving you things was the same as giving you time. I was wrong about that too." The twins absorbed this, little faces solemn in the firelight. "Are you still the boss of your company?" Emma asked. "Yes, but I'm working less. Some things matter more than money." Spring arrived, melting snow and revealing tender green shoots along the lakeshore. The twins enrolled in the local school's soccer program, making friends with other children who had no preconceptions about them being the rich twins from Manhattan or those poor girls without a mother. Samantha's visits decreased to weekly check-ins, then bi-weekly. During one session, she lingered after the twins went outside to play. "They've made remarkable progress," she told Richard. "Their attachment bond is healthy now, supportive rather than trauma-bonded." Richard watched through the window as the twins chased each other across the yard, their laughter carrying on the breeze. What made the difference? Try you, Samantha said simply. You showed up. You listened. You put them first. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition beyond the professional relationship they'd maintained. Richard noticed the way sunlight caught in Samantha's dark curls, the gentle strength in her hands as she gathered her materials. Would you like to stay for dinner? He asked impulsively. The girls are trying to teach me how to make spaghetti without creating a kitchen disaster. Samantha smiled. I'd like that very much. As summer returned to Lake Minnewaska, the cabin buzzed with activity. Richard's sabbatical had evolved into a permanent remote work arrangement, with occasional trips to Manhattan for crucial meetings. The twins attended day camp, where Emma discovered a talent for swimming, and Lily fell in love with photography. Samantha's professional visits had ended, but her personal ones continued. She brought books for the girls, hiking suggestions for weekend adventures, and a steady presence that asked for nothing but offered everything. On a perfect July evening, Richard sat on the dock while the twins attempted to catch fireflies in mason jars. Samantha joined him, her shoulder brushing his as she settled beside him. I received a job offer in Albany, she said quietly. Director of Child Trauma Services at the Children's Hospital. Richard felt his heart sink. Albany was an hour away, not impossible but a definite change from their current arrangement. The girls will miss you, he said carefully. Samantha turned to face him. Just the girls? The question hung between them, honest and unafraid. No, Richard admitted. Not just the girls. Behind them, the twins giggled as they set their captured fireflies free, watching the insects spiral upward in patterns of gold against the darkening sky. Daddy! Lily called. Look what we found. She and Emma approached, holding a small wooden box they'd discovered in the garden shed. Can we use it for our special things? Emma asked. Of course, Richard smiled. That night, after the twins were asleep, Richard found a new note in the communication notebook. We like when Samantha comes over. She makes you smile. In the morning, he left his response. She makes me smile too. Would it be okay if she visited more often? By autumn, the old wooden box had been repurposed. The family box, the twins called it, decorating it with lake stones and pine cones. Inside, they placed mementos of their healing journey, Emma's first A on a math test, Lily's award-winning photograph of the lake at dawn, the original communication notebook, filled with fears that had slowly transformed into hopes. On the box's lid, Lily had carefully painted 4 figures holding hands beside a lake: Richard, Emma, Lily, and now Samantha. 1 year after their escape from Manhattan, Richard proposed to Samantha on the dock at sunset, the twins serving as co-conspirators, presenting the ring in the wooden family box. Not to fix us, Richard explained as he knelt before her. We've learned to heal ourselves, but to join us if you want to. Samantha looked from Richard to the twins, who watched with hopeful eyes. I do want to, she answered simply. The small lakeside wedding took place the following spring. No business associates, no elaborate displays of wealth, just loved ones gathered to celebrate a family reborn through crisis. Martha baked the cake, the twins scattered wildflowers down a homemade aisle, and Richard's support group friends cheered as the couple exchanged vows. That night, after the celebration, Richard found the twins placing a new note in the family box. What's this one? He asked. Emma smiled. It's for later, when we might forget. Years later, when the lake house had expanded to accommodate visitors, teenagers, and eventually grandchildren, Richard would open that note and read the words written in a child's careful hand. Remember how we learned to listen to each other. Remember that families can break and heal stronger. Remember that love isn't perfect, it's present.